I'm excited to welcome this week's Tiara Talk Show guest, actor Blayne Weaver, to the show. Welcome, Blayne.
I'm very happy to be back on your show. The fact that you're there, it makes it a good thing. I'm happy about it.
That's sweet of you. I know, because we haven't talked in, was it 3 years now?
It's been, that sounds about right. Yeah, because we talked about my last movie, 6-month rule. So that sounds about right.
I know. So we're going to talk about your new movie coming up in a quick jiffy. I want to make sure we mention it at the end, because then it'll be more in people's minds than what we're going to talk about now. Although it's great what we're going to talk about, which is Peter Pan. You know, that's the big thing. Everybody loves Peter Pan. You know, there's always new movies and musicals coming out. But you are currently the voice of Peter Pan for the Disney company, and we all kind of heard you for the first time as Peter Pan in Return to Neverland that came out in 2002 as a theatrical release. So, my gosh, that was a long time ago.
It's a long time ago. It's like the best gig anybody's ever had, ever. I mean, it just keeps going, you know, and like every few months I'll get a call from, you know, Disney, and it'll be something else they want to do, whether it's something at the Disneyland parks or, a video game or something. Actually, I took a Disney cruise a while ago, and I was having dinner with my friends that I was on the cruise with, and all of a sudden I heard my voice, you know, I looked over and the walls were like animated and Peter was flying, and I'm like, that's me. That's so cool. That's nobody else knows it's me, but that's me. I'm very lucky that Disney has been happy enough to, you know, let me continue doing it.
And I know you've told me this story maybe like 3 times now, but just for our new listeners, can you talk about the initial audition for Peter Pan?
I really lucked out on it. Like it was a crazy turn of events, because basically I went in to see my agent in Los Angeles to kind of complain and say, you know, I haven't had a lot of auditions the last couple of months. It's like, what's going on? And, you know, as an actor, you do that, you check in, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, she was there and she looked on her desk like frantically, and she grabbed a piece of paper and looked at it, and she's like, here, go down the hall and audition for this. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so I went down to the voiceover department, and they were auditioning for Return to Neverland. But they were basically voice matching all of the characters to the 1950s film, the original Peter Pan. And in that original film, the lost boy Cubby was voiced by a grown-up, you know, and he kind of had like this goofy kind of voice. So they were looking for a grown-up to do that. And I went into the audition, and I'd never done a voiceover audition before, and I started doing it, and I just felt so silly. I'm like, I'm sorry, I just can't do this. But, you know, I can do a kid's voice. I can do Peter. Like, I love the movie Peter Pan. I could do that just for memory. And they're like, yeah, okay, you can audition for Peter. So I auditioned for it, and it was just like, for me, I just did Wally Cleaver from Leave It to Beaver. I don't know. I'd probably outdate you a little bit. It outdates me as well. But and then I left, and I didn't hear anything for months and months and months. And then I get a call from the voiceover department of my agency, and they're like, is this Blayne Weaver? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, did you audition for Peter Pan? And I'm like, yeah, like 6 months ago. And they're like, well, Disney wants to read you. You're like one of 3 that's up for it.
Wow.
And I just couldn't believe it. And like my agency, they didn't even make a note that this guy had come in, you know? So like Disney called, they had no idea who I was. I can't believe they were able to track it down, you know? But anyways, I went in and I got it. And then we spent about 2 years making that movie. I really didn't know that it was going to come out with me in it until it came out. And from then on, it's all history. And every time Peter Pan looks like the 1950s Peter Pan, it's me.
And my other favorite story is the song recording session.
Oh.
I think you're a fine singer, Blayne, but Blayne doesn't think he can sing. And this is like bogus, but go ahead. Why don't you tell the story?
It's a very nice thing of you to say, but it's just not true. It's just not. That was a comedy of errors. It really was. Because, well, first of all, you know, they usually call you and say, you know, hey, Blayne, Disney wants to book you for Thursday. Are you available? And I say, yeah. And then they check with Disney and they come back and they're like, all right, you're booked, right? And for this particular day, they called me and checked my availability. And I'm like, yes, I'm available. And they're like, great. And then I didn't hear anything back. So on Wednesday, I'm like, hey, do you guys still want me to do this on Thursday? And my agent was like, no, I guess not. They didn't call and book you. So I'm like, all right, well, then I'm going to the beach. So, you know, let me know. Anyways, I go to the beach, which is about as far away from the recording studio in Hollywood as you can possibly get in Los Angeles. And I'm supposed to be there. Like, they check my availability for 10 a.m. and it's 10:30 and they call me and they're like, "Where are you?" I'm like, they didn't book me. What do you mean? And it was this whole miscommunication with my agency and stuff. So first of all, I'm like an hour and a half late, right? So I went into this thing having told them, yeah, I can kind of sing. And, I did children's theater growing up, and I've been in a bunch of musicals and blah, blah, blah. Anyways, I get there and they're already mad because I'm late. And it's like this total professional. I mean, obviously it is. It's Disney. They do everything top notch, but it's at Capitol Records, right? Which is a lot of people's dream, not mine. I have to, the guy who's in charge has to stand right in front of me and like move his hand up and down, kind of showing me when to go higher and when to go lower. But apparently somebody bigger, some director or producer in the deal decided that it's kind of charming that Peter Pan doesn't sing that great. So I had to keep going back and doing more singing, and it was horrible for everybody involved. There was a scene where they wanted me to sing with the other Lost Boys, who were all actually kids. They were all between, like probably 6 and 12. And we were all singing together, and I was in the back kind of singing, and they stopped us like just right as we started and said, "Blayne, actually, can you get closer to the mic?" "Oh, sure. Okay. Sorry." And I kind of pushed through the kids and got right on the mic, and we started singing again. And they stopped us pretty quick and said, "Actually, Blayne, move back a little bit. Move back to where you were." So I stopped and moved back to the back, and we started singing again. It took me back to my children's theaters days when my director would tell me, just talk it, Blayne. Just talk it.
Yeah, I keep going back to your movies. I'm like, the ones that you make, and I'm like, okay, where's the musical number? I'm waiting for it.
You'll be waiting an awful long time. Again, about Disney and how just awesome that company is. Like, they really put thought into who these characters are, and like, and they stick with the same voices as much as they humanly can, which I think is great. Like, every time I record Peter Pan, they record it with a specialty microphone that's from the 1950s. That is the same mic that, they recorded the first one on, because it has this certain quality, this almost tinny kind of quality that, helps with the 1950s, kind of kick. And I love that like Peter Pan is always American, no matter what, country you're in. Peter Pan is an American kid from the, with that 50s kind of, gee whiz kind of thing. I love that they stick with that,
I like how they softened Peter's personality a little bit in Return to Neverland, because he'd been through a lot with Wendy and Michael and John, so it was just a different Peter Pan from that standpoint. So did they go into a little bit of a discussion with you on that?
Well, I think that's totally legit, but I feel like part of it was just that the time is different, It's like 2002 is a lot different than 1953, and attitudes and whatnot, about the boys will be boys kind of attitude. And Return to Neverland was really a female centric story. It's like Jane was really she was she had the big fight in the end, you know what I mean? And it was really a woman power kind of story. So I feel like was not to lose Peter's occasional jerkiness, you know what I mean? Because it's very easy to sugarcoat it and like totally forget that he's a boy and he doesn't really understand girls and blah blah blah. And I think there was a certain point where we were recording and it got too PC, if that makes any sense. And the directors were like, you know what, we can't forget that Peter's a little rough around the edges. So it was more about bringing it back than softening him. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think just because of the nature of Jane not taking any guff from him, it was already different than Wendy, who like who tolerated his machoism a little more than Jane does.
But if Peter were to get another movie, because Tinkerbell's getting a lot of movies now, which is wonderful. I love Tinkerbell coming into her own, and she has a voice this time around. But if Peter were to get a third film, what do you think would be a fun premise to put in for that film?
Well, that's a really good question. I tell you, I just did a video game for them the other day, and yeah, I can't remember the name of the video games, but it's these things where you have the little figurines of, you have all these characters, and you can be Iron Man, or you can be Star Wars, or you can be Peter, and they were doing this video game, and I asked them about it because I wasn't familiar with the video game system, and they're like, well, the fact is like Peter is still like one of the most popular characters, of the Disney brand, and it's like always with the costumes, always with the merchandise, and people just really like Peter, and I certainly I can say he's my favorite. So any story where Peter is out there swashbuckling and battling Captain Hook, I would be totally on board with. I think there's a million stories that Neverland can offer. I'd like to see more of Neverland and like some of those characters there, like the mermaids and whatnot. As long as I don't have to sing too much more.
Well, if you had a bag of pixie dust right now and could go anywhere, where would you like to fly to?
What a good question. If I could fly, I think I'd have to go to London to do the Big Ben flyby. I think that's the thing that you kind of have to do if you get that opportunity.
I like that one. And again, as I said earlier, there's so many adaptions of the Peter Pan story. Is there one that comes to mind as one that is your absolute all-time favorite, besides the ones that have been created by Disney?
That's a good question. To me, the big screen live action adaptations have always lacked the fun of the cartoon. It's like, because when you look at it for real, it's a dark story, and that's fine. I have nothing against a little darkness, but I really like the levity and the fun that Peter is in the original cartoon. So nothing really gets close to it for me, but I enjoyed seeing Robin Williams fly around.
But now you're making your own movies, of course. Last time we talked, we were talking about the 6-month rule, and now you have Cut to the Chase. Talk a little bit about the synopsis and how maybe some of us can actually see it at some point.
Well, yeah, totally. Look, Cut to the Chase is a Southern film noir thriller, and it's about this ex-con who's kind of a deadbeat, and I play that part. But he's got this younger sister who always watches out for him. She's a lawyer, and she's always bailing him out of trouble. And then she suddenly disappears, and he doesn't know if it's because of some of the bad habits that he has, or some of his criminal past, or what. But he has to go through into the underbelly of this criminal world in this Louisiana town to try to find his sister. So it's very exciting, and it's edge of your seat. It's a really fun film, but it's a really cool group of people, and it's a different movie for me. My other 3 films that I've written and directed have all been romantic comedies. So for sure, and everybody should go and check out the trailer on cuttothechasefilm.com. The movie isn't out yet. We're doing film festivals. We've been winning awards and getting great reviews, and we'll probably be doing that until about November, December. But I'm hoping that in the beginning of the new year, it'll be out and people can go see it.
Thank you again for coming on the show. I'll make sure I put the links below so listeners can follow you on Twitter and Facebook and head to the Cut to the Chase website as well. But before we leave, I have 3 new Disney questions I always end with all my guests. I call them the Fab 3.
The Fab 3.
Yeah, so we'll start with the Donald one, which is, as a child, what Disney film was your favorite to see in the movie theater? The first one that came out that I really enjoyed going to see in the theater was Little Mermaid. And I really like that one. And our goofy question, what Disney character, besides the ones from Neverland, do you think would be your best friend if you met them in person?
I got to go with Jiminy Cricket on that one. And he'd just hang out and give me advice, and then when I didn't listen to him, that'd be fine. I wouldn't mind some good conscience be your guide advice once in a while.
And our Mickey question, if I asked you to name any Disney song at this very moment, what immediately comes to mind?
Well, it's kind of cheating because I got no strings. But I'll tell you this. My star turn as Pinocchio when I was 10 years old, kind of the beginning of my legit acting career, Best role I ever played. And I can still do that little thing where you jump up and click your heels. I learned it for that.
Well, thank you again for coming on the show, Blayne. And I hope there's another Peter Pan project in the works that we can talk about soon. That would be really great to see him back in the theater.
Letters to Disney immediately. But this is great. It was great to talk to you as always.
Feeling scared,
I have my friends right there.
These are the things we lost boys do.